America's accountant Dan Geltrude joins me now to discuss. Dan, if Sam Bankman-Fried, who's being depicted as one of the biggest con men in American history, it's just, if he feels like going to the hearing, he has a warm welcome by our elected officials. I'm already not optimistic about how a hearing will go for him tomorrow, for us anyways.
Well, what I anticipate is a gigantic case of amnesia. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that we're going to hear him say a lot of nothing. He didn't know what was going on. He doesn't remember. He doesn't have his records, his financial information or anything to be able to answer these questions in any type of detail. I assume he'll say he really wants to cooperate, but he just can't. And the reason that he's going to take that position is, number one, he's not going to say anything he's going to incriminate himself. That's point one. And point two is, when you have a fraud case, and just so the viewers know, I actually teach a fraud course at Montclair State University. And when you're talking about fraud, the big aspect, the key element is intention. So in order to prove fraud, you have to prove that there was an intent to deceive. So what he's going to be laying down here is that he did not do anything intentionally. It was done out of, he was naive, he was in over his head, he made some mistakes. That's ultimately what we're going to hear from him. It was just one big disaster, but I didn't mean for it to go this way. I didn't do anything on purpose for things to end up this way. So that's what I really anticipate we're going to hear from him.
But Dan, do you think he can actually? Do you think people will actually buy that excuse when you look into the SBF case, all of the commingling of funds that he did? Do you think, given all of that, given all the intertwining of funds and the companies, the hedge funds, would anyone actually buy that excuse? That seems pretty intentional at face value.
It looks like the evidence may very well show that it was fraud, meaning that there was intent to defraud people of money, to take money and do whatever they did with it, however they spent it. So I think reasonable people, and that's what the jury system is about, right, is that they'll look at the evidence and make a determination. However, I think right now there are people that do not want to believe the worst case scenario because, well, he's donated a lot of money to politicians. So they're certainly looking to figure out how they can spin out of this one. And I don't know what they're hoping for, but certainly they're going to not want to believe that he's done the things that are alleged, Addison.
Yeah, well, and he's going to be leaving behind quite a bad legacy for himself and his family name, no matter the legal outcome of this. We all know this, the justice system in this country, very corrupt. Sam Bankman-Fried, he's donated millions and millions of dollars to a lot of these Democrats. He was the second largest donor to the Democrats. So it won't surprise me if he gets off with a slap on the wrist, but, either way, we all know the story of what really happened with this very corrupt, one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever. Now, Dan, I also want to get your comments on this. BlackRock is facing a massive PR crisis. A lot of states are dropping BlackRock over their ESG policies. And now BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, the state treasurer, is saying that he should resign. Just want to get your thoughts on what we're seeing with BlackRock right now. Republicans very much not fans of BlackRock with all the funding they do to the left side of the aisle. What do you make of all these states that are ditching them?
So let's put BlackRock in perspective here. They are the largest asset manager. They have $8 trillion of assets under management here. So these guys are the big fish. So now the real issue here that's happening is particularly their policies related to ESG, which of course that is far left leaning. So what you have is you have states saying, listen, ESG and that mindset is all driven by political ideology. And that's not the business you're in. You're in the business of managing assets. So stick with managing assets on a level playing field, and don't start getting involved with kowtowing or placating to one side of the aisle. And that's why, based upon the leadership that BlackRock has had in taking these positions related to ESG, which of course is very, very harmful to specifically U.S. energy and the fossil fuel industry. And they're saying, if we're going to invest money with you, we want you to invest in the best interest of the business, not your politics.
Now, I have a clip that I want to play for our audience of a BlackRock CEO and Bill Clinton at a conference together. I want our audience to hear what they say. Take a listen.
I want to say one thing about Larry that I really admire, quite apart from the fact that he's not a climate change denier.
I'm the target of all those.
So for much of our audience, that right there, Bill Clinton and well, the fact that Larry Fink is hanging out with Bill Clinton, they're doing a conference together, a panel together, and they're talking about climate denial. Dan, you can really understand why a lot of states don't want to mess with BlackRock, don't want to be involved with BlackRock anymore, because they have gone so off the rails, gone so woke, and they've prioritized environmental, social governance over, what a company is supposed to do, which is deliver a profit to their shareholders.
Well, that's exactly it, and that's what this is all about in terms of stay out of politics and stick with running the business. Now, as far as the comment there that former President Clinton made about being a climate denier, climate does change. I think everybody recognizes that as you go through periods of time where it's hotter, it's colder, and that's how it is. I'm no scientist, but those are the facts. Now, the question simply comes down to the cause of climate change and whether it is really fossil fuel and energy policies that causes the climate to change. And that's really where the jury's out. So to start taking a position based on science that doesn't necessarily support that we are causing climate change, and then start making all these changes to energy policies, which, as far as the United States goes, is quite damaging to our economy, well, what's the basis for doing that? So if we can finally get the science straight, I think the economics will follow.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Dan Geltrude, America's Accountant, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Addison.